I have never been super interested in playing a rogue. I always kind of thought that they would be a little bit boring because, just sneak attacking every round. Um, Even in Baldur's Gate 3, I didn't really, I multi-classed Asterion out of rogue instantly. But this rogue, I, I'd play it. I'd actually be kind of interested in it.
I make my
So
own fun, Cameron.
we know, we all know.
Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns and Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Cameron, aka Prince Phantom. And today we're gonna do a little bit of a deeper dive into what is it? Dungeons and Dragons 2024. Is that what we're calling it
Sure.
now?
Yeah,
All
good
right.
enough.
The Rogue class.
Yeah, so we
And
did a general
what's
overview,
changed?
and now we're going to start diving into a bit more specifics. And Bob, you're a big fan of the Rogue, so
Yeah, I
certainly
love
we can
Rogue.
do this one first. You're going to love the new Rogue too. I'm just going to spoil it for you.
Well,
This it's
that's good. I mean, like I love the idea of the rogue, and I do know I realize it's one of the weaker classes in fifth edition. So maybe we've
yeah,
improved things.
yeah. So I definitely think this new Rogue is an improvement. Now, how does it stack up against the other classes that also received improvements? Yet to be seen. Everybody got buffed pretty much. So, we have a new scale to compare it to. So let's not waste too much more time here and dive right into it. I'm just going to go through the base rogue first, and we'll go level by level with the different things that they get at each level. Some levels are completely unchanged, so we'll skip by those. And after we're done with that, we'll go over the four new subclasses. Should say revised subclasses. The rogue didn't get any new subclasses, but they got all four of them got revised in some way, some big, some small. And so we'll go over each of those.
All right. For those of you watching at home, there is also a written version of this on the website, and it'll be linked in the description. So yeah, follow along there if you want.
Yes. So, starting at level one, let's just talk about base proficiencies that the class grants. Mostly unchanged, except rogues have lost proficiency in long swords. Instead, now they have proficiency in all weapons with the finesse property.
I can handle that.
Really, that doesn't change anything. If you want to get a weapon, you use a rapier instead of a longsword, and
Yeah.
you already had that anyway. So that's not a big deal. And if you're doing a strength-based rogue, you're probably multi-classing some levels into fighter or barbarian anyway, and you'll get proficiencies from them. So it's not really a big deal. Um, Moving on. Sneak attack. Completely unchanged in terms of the dice math and everything, but it has more things that get added onto it that we're going to get into later in the class. So put a pin in that for
Okay.
now. Expertise. Another minor change here. Rogues get expertise in two things at level one in the 2014 book. They can choose either two skills, two tools, or one tool, one skill. Now it is just two skills. Tools cannot be part of your expertise. And in fact, that kind of seems like a thing across the books entirely. Tool expertise is kind of being pushed to the wayside entirely. So I don't think that's necessarily a nerf to the rogue. I think that's just a universal change with the books in general.
Okay.
It also looks like I did get a sneak peek at the lock picking rules. It seems like the player's handbook, and don't quote me on this, I heard this third hand nearly, but it seems like the lock picking rules are easier than they were in the 2014 version. And that being said, your DM can still change it if it's an especially difficult lock and they want to set DC 30, by all means they can. So I don't know how much that's actually going to affect things, but you should be all right either way. You can stack guidance and a million other things on top of a lock picking check. I've never met a rogue that actually failed a lock picking check, and this isn't going to make him fail them either. So, first big buff: the rogues, along with all their martial classes, get weapon mastery,
Oh,
and they get two weapons to learn the mastery properties for, and can swap them out on a long rest. So you could grab the mastery property of daggers and a light crossbow if you wanted to, something like that. And you can apply those. And this is really helpful for the rogue in particular because there is a mastery called Nick. Briefly touched on this in our previous video. Nick is essentially the fix for two-weapon fighting. And rogues really benefit from that because it gives them a second opportunity to hit their sneak attack, which massively increases their average damage output per turn.
That's
It also
it
keeps
doesn't
their
feel
bonus
like
action.
it doesn't feel like weapon mastery if you're switching it out on long rests.
Maybe mastery wasn't the right word for it, but either way, it's
Yeah.
bonus stuff you can do with your weapons. But the best part about Nick is that it allows you to keep your bonus action free, which is something that even the rogue that the 2014 rogue that like took the crossbow expert with hand crossbow, which was my normally recommended route for a rogue, they had to use up their bonus action if they wanted to make a second attack. This rogue can make 2 attacks with their action thanks to the Nick property and leave their bonus action free for cutting action, for disengage, dash, hide, whatever they like to do. So that's really helpful for them.
All right.
They also get Thieves' Cant has had a slight buff. It provides the actual Thieves' Cant language along with 1 additional language.
Yay.
Yeah, more languages.
That's something I've never ever used.
Yeah. Level 2.
Well, before we go on to level 2,
yeah.
I got a general rogue question. Now, the first time I played a 5th edition rogue, people were laughing at me because I wasn't finding traps except by smashing them with my face. But like, all right, that's supposed to be a rogue thing to do, but there's no rogue abilities to find traps, right? It's like it's an investigation.
It's an entire fallacy that the rogue is.
Right.
It's an entire fallacy that the rogue is supposed to be the one to find traps. Rogues can be good at disabling traps through mechanical means, although rogues that have no bonuses and didn't in 5th edition. I can't speak for earlier editions, but have never in 5th edition had any bonuses for finding traps. They could take expertise and perception, but I mean, other classes can do that too.
But I dumped wisdom already,
speaking of find traps, something that is, I suppose, relevant in that it's not eating the rogue's lunch. The find trap spell was completely unchanged.
Well, what are they doing with this?
Don't worry, rogues that were specializing in finding traps, you still have a job.
There's nothing to improve trap finding in this, then, is there?
No, not really.
No. Okay.
So their level 2 cutting action that I just detailed lets them dash, dodge, not dodge, can't dodge, dash, hide, or disengage as a bonus action, unchanged. But like I said, you might get more utility out of it now because your bonus action is more free. Level 3, subclasses. We'll get to those later. At level 3, you also get steady aim. This was a optional rule in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything that actually came in at level 4. It has been made a permanent rule and now comes at level 3. And aside from that, it works exactly the same as it did in Tasha's. You can use your bonus action to gain advantage on your next attack roll. The only caveat being that you cannot have moved before taking this bonus action, and you cannot move after. You're essentially sacrificing your entire movement for the entire turn.
That's fair. Makes sense.
So really easy way to trigger your sneak attack if you have no other good way to do it, and you're fine with sacrificing your movement for the turn.
Yeah.
So it's a good backup option. Level 4, you get a feat. Unchanged, but notably, I have been able to take a look at a lot of the feats now that we've had a bit more time. And I will say, I won't go into super high detail here, there are a lot more feats that work with the rogue now. So there is a lot of good stuff here for the rogue.
Like new feats or revised old feats?
Revised old feats, mostly.
Yeah.
I think there's like 2 or maybe 3 new feats in the whole book. So don't necessarily look for that. But revised feats, there is some good stuff here. Level 5 brings us Uncanny Dodge, which is the reaction to take half damage from a physical attack, unchanged. And our big ticket item for the rogue revision. This is what you're looking for. This is Cunning Strike. This feature allows you to trade the damage dice of your sneak attack for secondary effects when you hit.
That's exciting.
For example, you get 3 right here at level 5, and you'll get a few more as we increase in level. You can, so at level 5, you'd have 3d6 for your sneak attack. So you can basically spend one of those d6 for one of these three effects. So you can instead deal 2d6 sneak attack damage and have this poison effect, which requires a poisoner's kit to be on you. And if you use it, the target makes a constitution save, becoming poisoned for 1 minute on a fail, and can repeat this save at the end of each of their turns. So you can do 2d6 damage and poison them. Alternatively, you could do 2d6 damage and trip them. If the target is large or smaller, they must succeed on a dexterity save or fall prone. And the last option is withdraw. So again, for 1d6 of your sneak attack damage, after you attack, you may move up to half your movement speed without provoking opportunity attacks. And with a bonus
Now,
action dash, you could really get away.
Yeah. Now, are these like melee or range dependent, or?
Nope. They work with anything, any weapon you got. They are completely universal, and so you could do any of these with ranged or melee.
Okay, because yeah, trip seems a little far fetched with a crossbow, but that's fine.
Works.
I'll take it. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, notably, if you do trip somebody at range, you will then have disadvantage to hit them. So maybe you don't want to do that because they will be prone. But
or I'll give my
still,
friends
you got other
advantage
options
though,
here,
so,
and yeah, and you can actually. I've been harsh on the skirmisher fantasy a lot because I just don't feel like most builds actually have enough movement to pull it off. But with withdraw plus a bonus action dash, I can actually kind of see it working. So if you wanted to do like the booming blade rogue melee combo build thing, I think you could actually pull it off pretty consistently here.
All right, what about let me ask you this. Can you do 1d6 sneak attack damage and 2 effects?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
In a bit we can. Yeah.
Oh, all right. I was gonna ask like not yet, as in that's not part of these rules yet, or not yet as in the
not
road?
yet as in wait till we get to level 11.
Okay. Gotcha.
So level 6, no changes. Level 7, we still get evasion, no change there. Level also at level 7, excuse me, we get reliable talent, which used to be an 11th level feature, has been bumped down to level 7. So it works the exact same way as reliable talent did in the 2014 book, but now you get it at level 7 instead of a level 11, which is cool.
Yeah.
Levels 8 and 9 are unchanged. Level 10, you still get an extra feat, which is great, but otherwise unchanged. Level 11 is the improved Cutting Strike. This is where we now can do what you were wanting to do. So you can take 2 Cutting Strike options and apply them to the same sneak attack. You must still pay the dice cost for both effects. So like you said, you have to pay 2d6 to do 2 effects. And you cannot choose the same option twice. But aside from that, I don't really know why you would want to, because you can't poison a thing twice. You could withdraw twice, but yeah, that's the only one that would work. But you can't double up on them.
Okay.
So that's really great. You can poison and trip somebody. That's cool. You could poison and run away from somebody. There's that I genuinely think that is an actual power boost. On first reading, I was like, but the more I've thought about it, the more I've warmed up to it. Levels 12 and 13 remain unchanged. Level 14, we get Devious Strikes.
Ooh.
We get 3 more options for our Cutting Strike. These are a bit more expensive, but they have more powerful effects. So these are all added to the previous options that we had, poison, trip, and withdraw. Now we also have daze. And you're going to see the term daze come up a little bit more frequently. Well, you never heard it before. You're going to hear it come up frequently in this new book. It's kind of a new status. You know what Tasha's Mind Whip does, right? Where it forces you to only do it. You can only take an action, a bonus action, or move.
Right.
That's daze.
Oh, okay.
And so that's what this does. It costs 2d6 of your sneak attack damage, and if the target fails a Constitution save, they may only take an action, bonus action, or move on their turn, but only one of them. Additionally, there is Obscure, which costs 3d6 of your sneak attack damage, and if the target fails a dexterity save, they are blinded until the end of their next turn. So that's very useful.
Sure.
And the most powerful one is Knockout. it costs 6d6 of your sneak attack damage, which is nearly all of them at this level.
Yes.
So you're trading basically all of your damage for, if the target fails a Constitution save, they fall unconscious for 1 minute. This effect can end early if they take any damage, and they can repeat the save at the end of each of their turns. Now, why is unconscious so powerful? Well, it's because any melee attack against an unconscious creature is an automatic critical hit.
Yeah.
So that's potentially, you could set up somebody like yourself or a paladin or somebody who's got a really strong attack that they can dish out. You can set them up for a big amount of damage and do a lot more than you would have done with your normal sneak attack. So it's a big risk, but with a potentially big reward.
Yeah, I can see myself doing that.
So any questions about those three options? Again, that is Obscure, Knockout, and Daze.
Just like you can double up these with a different one from before.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I haven't thought about
Yeah, as
any
long as you have the sneak
combos.
attack dice to pay for it.
I haven't thought about any combos I'd like
Because
to
I
try
assume
out, but it's nice to know the options there.
Yes. So I mean, I could see, perhaps if we wanted to, Daze and Poison, I think would be a good combo. Because then they can only take one of their actions and they have disadvantage on whatever they're trying to do. That's really disabling them for only 3d6 damage, which you compare that to blinding them for a turn, and I think that's pretty comparable. Maybe even better, though you are relying on them failing 2 saving throws. Now, one thing I want to check really quick. Okay, so we are up to 14th level here. You will notice, if you are following along at home with the base rogue, that I have not mentioned a feature, Blind Sense, that you would normally obtain at level 14. That has been removed. And there's no direct replacement for it. Why they did this, I don't really know. It never caused any problems. It was 10-foot blind sense around you. Fighters can get that at level 1. I mean, with blind fighting, it's not that strong of a feature. If your rogue really misses this, just let him have it. It's not going to break your game. But I don't really know any rogues that were really missing it. Either way. Level 15, we get Slippery Mind. Previously, only boosted your wisdom saving throws. Now grants you proficiency in wisdom, intelligence. Well, wisdom and charisma saving throws. You already had proficiency in intelligence saving throws. So now you're proficient in all of the mental saves and dexterity.
Well, that's good.
So, yeah, it makes you really good at saving throws. Levels 16, 17, and 18 are unchanged. Level 19, you get an epic boon, as does every class at level 19 now. And at level 20, Stroke of Luck now works when you fail any D20 tests. D20 test is another piece of language that you're going to hear more frequently as we go throughout this new book. It just refers to any ability check, attack roll, or saving throw.
Okay.
So they've kind of just condensed the language. So now it used to only work with attack rolls. So now you can use it on ability checks and saving throws, which is really great because now you can get an automatic 20 on that saving throw that would have killed you.
That's nice.
So that is the base rogue. Not a ton of changes. The big ticket item here. What do you think?
Yeah, it's I'm really impressed with the little effects you can add instead of swapping out your sneak attack dice. That's I think that's going to make things a lot more interesting for the rogue.
I think it's a genius design space.
Yes, I really enjoyed using sneak attack just for a nice big chunk of damage, but I think I'm going to enjoy it more when I can play around with some other effects.
Yeah, so
or just do a big chunk of damage.
Yeah, I really think that this is. I almost wish they would have done more with it, to be perfectly honest with you. I feel like they could have come up with 10 more of these different effects and just handed them to you. I think this is a really great place to homebrew if you want to, if you and your DM want to work out some extra effects that you can potentially do. You've already been given a pretty good scale for how much things should cost, and you can play around with that scale. It's a very easy knobs to turn as you play your game.
Mm-hmm.
I like I said, there are some subclasses, one in particular, that gives you a few more of these options. I wish
See,
every subclass gave you more of
that's what I was
these.
going to say. That could be done with subclasses. I'm glad they
Yeah,
did it with one. Hopefully, if we get more subclasses in the future, they'll continue that trend.
yeah. Strictly speaking, in terms of a design sense, I'm very happy with this. My only complaint is that they didn't do more.
Yeah.
Now, talking on a balance scale, the base rogue didn't receive any damage buffs that the other classes didn't also get. Their only real damage buff is weapon mastery, and that's
Mm-hmm.
a bit nebulous in of itself. So the base rogue's big problem in combat was already their damage output. Now, damage that you can do, potentially having this rogue deal less damage than the 2014 rogue. However, the secondary effects may make the difference there. I'm not sure yet. There more play testing needs to be done to see exactly how okay we are with lowering the damage for these secondary effects. One of the problems with these secondary effects is that many of them trigger off of a Constitution saving throw. Now, in the 2014 Monster Manual, that's the worst thing to target. It remains to be seen if that will continue to be the case. 2014 Monster Manual can make come out, and Constitution across the board for monsters may be nerfed. We don't know that yet. But
Well, I
right
do
now,
like we got Trip that is based off a deck save, and yeah, that can be a lot of fun.
yeah,
Knock them prone.
yeah. So you do have
Um,
some options.
yeah, and have your friends go beat the snot out of them.
Yeah. So I do think right now, just based off first impressions, the base rogue could have used more in terms of numerical buffs. I would have liked to see sneak attack do more damage. I think they could have gotten away with that.
Yeah,
And I think you could have added a couple extra dice on there. Now, that being said, the rogue subclasses are definitely a lot better than they were previously in most cases. So perhaps that's where the main power buff is going to come from. But in terms of the base rogue, it's certainly a lot more fun to play. I'm just not sure how much more statistically powerful it is.
yeah. Well, it was never super powerful. I was always in it for the fun, and this amps that up a
That's
bit, so
fine.
I'm happy with that. But
I can
yeah,
guarantee this will be more fun.
but yeah, that does lead me to wonder: do the subclasses give you any more boost in power?
Well, let's go over them. So, your subclass level progression for all of these has not changed. You get a feature at level 3, level 9, level 11, and level 17? Yes, 18. Something like that. Anyway, um, I was hoping that Rogue's subclass progression would be fixed, that perhaps they would not have such a gulf between level 3 and level 9. That is not the case. So, say la vie. We'll start and just go alphabetically. We have the Arcane Trickster. Previously, I ranked it as the best rogue subclass, and that's not changing.
Yeah.
It's only gotten even better. And some others have gotten closer to it, but it is still the best. And that is just because it gets spellcasting. And that spellcasting helps fill in that gap between level 3 and level 9. Because where the other rogues aren't getting any features, you're at least getting new spells and more spell slots. So, with the Arcane Trickster's features, level 3, we can now swap out Arcane Trips, which we couldn't do before. Other than Mage Hand, keep Mage Hand on you at all times, but you'd want to anyway.
I want to keep
Um,
Mage Hand with me. Yeah.
yeah, so we have a bit more versatility there. Additionally, the spells that you select, you remember previously, they were limited to illusion and enchantment spells.
Mm.
From the wizard class, except for a couple picks. That restriction has been entirely lifted.
Ooh, that's interesting.
So yes, Arcane Tricksters now have the full wizard list to pick from, which is previously the best spellcasting list in the game and is still the best spellcasting list in the game. It has only gotten better. So that's a really big buff just by itself.
Now I can pick Find Traps.
Yeah.
Joking, joking.
Only because you brought it up again. Another neat tidbit I found. Did you know they actually managed to find a way to nerf Find Traps? There
How?
was there was a genuine use for Find Traps in the 2014 version. It's rare, but it does come up. Find Traps can detect clauses in devil contracts that seek to screw you over
Okay.
in the 2014 version. So if you woke up that day knowing that you were planning on going and dealing with devils, it might actually be worth it to find traps. It doesn't do that anymore. It only
Oh,
works
well.
for mechanical physical traps, not metaphysical ones. Anyway, for their back to the Arcane Trickster, for their Mage Hand Ledger Domain feature, they can now cast Mage Hand as a bonus action. So that's just great. That makes their action economy on turn one a lot better. So that's everything for level 3 for them. At level 9, their Magical Ambush feature, which previously gave the target of their spell disadvantage on the saving throw of the spell if the rogue was hidden from that target. So it's kind of like sneak attack with spells.
Right.
There's just some slight wording changes here. It's asking you to be invisible rather than hidden to force disadvantage on the target of your spell. However, as we went over in our previous video, in these new rules, being hidden counts as being invisible. So functionally, there's no change here. Don't let the new wording confuse you.
All right. Thanks for the clarification.
For the Versatile Trickster feature, at their next subclass level, when you use the Trip Cutting Strike, so we're modifying the Trip Cutting Strike here, you may attempt to trip a second creature that is within 5 feet of your initial target. So you can trip 2 guys. The flavor of this is that your Mage Hand is doing it. And they make the dex save just like the first guy. So you're kind of being able to double that up if you have 2 people standing next to each other. Not going to come up every time, but may come up sometimes.
Yeah, and maybe if you weren't going to use Trip, now you would.
Yeah. And their last feature, Spell Thief, which is a really wildly complex capstone that allows them to semi-counterspell someone's spell and then recast it later, like store it within themselves and
Right.
recast it later. Really cool feature. The only change is that the saving throw to resist this feature is now an intelligence save rather than a saving throw based on your target's spell casting ability, which means that this is a bit easier to land. So, for example, if you're targeting a cleric with this,
Right.
now you're targeting their intelligence rather than their wisdom, which is likely going to be a harder save for them to make.
Yes.
So, the Arcane Trickster is largely unchanged, but just got minor buffs, and the biggest one clearly being able to pick wizard spells freely. That alone just skyrockets this subclass even higher.
Yeah, that is a big one.
So not huge changes, but good changes, and buffs all around. Any questions about the Arcane Trickster? Their spellcasting progression, the rate at which they learn spells, all that is still the same. Nothing's changed there. If we're all good there, we'll move on to the Assassin. Now,
All
the
right.
Assassin previously had some problems. I think we can both agree.
It didn't do much.
Yeah, its Assassinate feature was pretty feast or famine. You either got surprise and completely murdered your opponents, but you probably would have done that anyway, or you didn't get surprised and you didn't have a subclass. So they have done work to fix that. However, I fear in doing so they may have actually turned the dial too far in the other direction. And not in the strong direction, in the now I do stuff but it's not impactful direction.
Ah,
So let's talk about their new assassinate feature. So as we talked about in the previous video, the surprise rules are completely different now. There is no surprise round. There is no surprise condition. The old assassins feature just doesn't work in this new system. So it had to be revamped. So now with assassinate at level 3, you deal extra damage equal to your rogue level whenever you hit a target on round 1 with your sneak attack. That's
that doesn't sound as good at all.
It's not. Now,
No.
granted, this works every combat, whereas
Yeah.
assassinate maybe only worked 1 in 3, but you're adding 3 damage to 1 attack per combat, assuming you can sneak attack on round 1, which isn't even always true. I mean, he got steady aim, so it probably is
Yeah.
true. But you see what I'm getting at here?
Oh yeah, I'm not impressed so far.
Yeah, sure, you get to level 20 and it's a flat 20 extra damage, and that's cool. But it's still just 20 extra damage once.
Yeah.
That's my big hiccup with this. If it was every hit, if this was even every hit on round 1, but it only applies to your sneak attack on round 1, and you can only do 1 of those.
What else do we have?
Well, nothing until level 9, and there's your first problem. This is all you've got until level 9. You don't even get the advantage on attacks against creatures who haven't moved yet in combat, which used to be the only thing that you would get if you didn't get surprise. No, I'm sorry. No, that is all you get. Actually, sorry. Infiltration expertise doesn't come until level 9.
Okay.
So yeah, infiltration expertise. This is the feature that allows you to copy people's speech after listening to them for an hour.
Snore.
So useless. Now it allows you to copy the creature speech or handwriting much more quickly. And also it gives you an actual combat feature. It allows you to use steady aim without reducing your movement speed to 0. Now, there's a little bit of trickery with the wordplay here. You got to be careful. Note, you still cannot move before activating steady aim. So pay attention to the order in which you're taking your actions on your turn. So what you need to do if you want to move and use steady aim,
Use steady aim first.
use steady aim as soon as your turn starts.
Yes.
Yeah. Then you can move around as much as you want and make your attack. It just says, whenever you make your next attack, you don't have to make the attack as soon as you do steady aim.
Mm.
So just make sure you order things correctly in your turn. How good is that? I don't know. It is a feature for combat though, which is more than I could say for the previous Assassin's 9th level feature.
It's a little bit freeing.
Yeah, I do like their 11th level. No, sorry, not 11th, 13th level feature in Venom weapons. This improves the poison cunning strike. So now when you use the poison cunning strike, if the enemy fails the save, they take 2d6 poison damage, and this damage ignores resistance to poison damage. Now, interesting thing with this. It says when they fail to save, they take this damage. It also says they repeat this save at the end of their turns for the next minute. That means if they fail their first save, they take the 2d6 damage. They come to their turn. If they fail to save again, they take 2d6 more damage.
That's fun.
Now, I don't know how often that's going to happen, your enemy failing 2 Constitution saving throws in a row, but it could. And it's rare to see a persistent damage over time status effect in D&D.
But I mean, if any of them are going to be, poison makes sense.
Exactly, right? I feel like there should be more of this, to be honest with you. I think the only reason there isn't is that it can be difficult to track. But just having one feature like this, I think, is fine. And I like this. Your poison feature, your poison cunning strike feature costs 1d6. So this is essentially potentially refunding you that d6 and 1 more. Obviously, assuming that they fail to save, there's no guarantee they will. So it's a bit of risk reward there. But I like it.
Yeah. It's like the trip thing with the arcane trickster. It encourages you to use one of your cunning strikes. a specific
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, and I like that. And like I said, I wish they played around with this design space even more.
There's
Their
still room
capstone,
for it.
yeah, their capstone feature, Death Strike, still is kind of bad. It doubles the damage of your sneak attack on round one if the target fails a Constitution save.
Uh, does that also double your assassinate points?
Yes, it will.
Eh,
So
that's
if this lands, it's a
potentially
big
pretty
chunk.
cool. Yeah, yeah.
The problem is you're at level 17 asking your opponent to fail a Constitution saving throw.
Yeah.
And that's just not going to happen very often. And you only have one shot at it per combat. So
It is what it is.
this
Not
assassin is
sure how I
better.
feel about this. What's that?
This assassin is better than the
Yeah.
old one. I can't deny that. The old assassin had some like multi-classing utility that some builds used, but outside of that, it was very, very overblown. Not nearly as good as people thought it was, because every once in a while it'd pump out 90 damage and then just be a base rogue for the other 95% of the time.
Well,
Um,
if they're doing their job and getting their surprise rounds, then they're a real assassin.
yeah,
If they're not, they're just stomping in there willy-nilly, and they don't deserve to be called an assassin.
yeah, it was mostly the problem with the rest of your party.
Yeah. It's
Anyway, I think that currently this is the weakest of the four. And I think it's the level 3 to 9 that's just killing it. Honestly, the level 3 to 13. Like once I get Envenom Weapon, I'm pretty happy. That's a cool feature. I'd like to use that on a rogue. But before that, it's not much for me to be excited about.
what else we have?
We have the Soul Knife coming to us from
Popular
Tasha's.
choice.
Yeah, not many changes to this one, just a few little minor wording things. So I'm going to go through this one quickly. For Psionic Power, you can recover a side die with a short rest, no longer with a bonus action. So that is a bit of a nerf. You won't be recovering as many side die as quickly and easily. You'll probably still be using the same amount of them per day, so it's not really that big of a nerf.
Mm.
Additionally, with your telepathy, you now need to share a language with your target. This is not a nerf specifically to the Psyrogue. This seems universal across the books that telepathy is being homogenized like this, which is
That's
fine.
fair. Yeah.
We didn't need 3 different ways that telepathy works. For the Psi Blades, your Psi Knives, you can now use these weapons for opportunity attacks. You couldn't before, and that was the biggest complaint of the subclass. They fixed it. However, if you receive a reaction attack from a source that is not an opportunity attack, you can't use them for that. For example, the Battlemaster Fighter's Commander Strike, which allows an ally to make an attack as a reaction.
All right.
You can't use your Psi Knives with that. So it's still kind of awkward if you have somebody like that in the party that's granting you reaction attacks, but at least it works for opportunity attacks now. So additionally, these side blades also now have the Vex property. The Vex property is a weapon mastery that gives you, once you hit, you have advantage on your next attack against that creature. That's interesting, right? Especially for a class that doesn't get extra attack.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But I mean, that will carry over to your next turn.
It will, yes. Yes, it will. So I wish these would have had Nick instead of Vex. I really felt like that would have been better. They did also get another buff. They have before in their Tasha's version, they had a 60-foot range and no long range. Now they have added a long range of 120 feet. So you can attack at 60 feet normally and 60 to 120 feet with disadvantage.
What if you used your Vex last time?
Then it would cancel out and you would have a regular
yeah.
attack. So their 9th level feature, Soul Blades, both of the features you get from this are unchanged. The Psychic Veil is unchanged. and Rend Mind is unchanged. So literally the only thing that is changing about this is your level 3 feature, and we're getting some minor adjustments to that. So the Soul Knife is the least changed of the 4 in this player's handbook. You'll find that to be true of most of the subclasses that are being ported over from Tasha's. They're pretty happy
Yeah.
with how the subclasses turned out in that book. So am I for the most part. So I'm fine with this. And it's still likely the second best rogue. There
Yeah.
is the last one that we're going to talk about, may potentially have some claim to that title, depending on the
Well,
campaign. But
I'm excited about that one because I mean I like the Soul Blade, but it's got a little too much paranormal for my rogue once.
that's fair. Perhaps the thief is more your speed.
It is. Let's see if it
So
if it improved.
you, I'm sure, remember our build that we did about all of the many things that you can do with fast hands.
Right.
So you can't do some of those things anymore. You can still do a few of them. The wording has been clarified a lot here as to what fast hands can and can't do. Uh, the ability to throw acid vials and other similar objects, that's not going to work anymore. Not because of the wording of the fast hands feature, but actually because of the wording of the acid vial and similar objects themselves. I talked about this briefly in the last video, but acid vials and other grenade-like objects have in their text that you can throw them as part of an attack action.
Okay.
So that is how you use those if you want to use those. It's better that way for the rest of the table, but it does mean that the Thief Rogue doesn't get to use them as a bonus action anymore. That being said, there is now the ability to use magic items as a bonus action. Now, this is a lot more nebulous, right? I can basically say that you can pick up acid vials and poison and stuff like that. I can even recommend that you take the Conjuration Wizard subclass to level 2, and you can make all that stuff on your own. I have no idea what kind of magic items you're going to get in your game. There
That's
is no
true.
way for me to predict that or to give a power ranking to that at all. Potentially, this could be extremely powerful. Potentially you could get a wand of fireballs and be throwing a fireball out with your bonus action and sneak attacking with your action. And that's insane.
Yeah.
But I don't know. You might not, and you're getting this at level 3. Like, you don't often have those super powerful magic items yet.
Well, that's well,
You
don't do the
might.
magic items not also like specify that you have to take an action to use them?
Yes, but this is saying that you can use a
Oh,
magic
this
item as a bonus
overrides that.
action. Yeah,
Okay. Well,
yes.
yeah, that's pretty big
Yeah, it
potentially.
is. Yeah, this is potentially much stronger than the previous Thief Rogue. But it could also be stone nothing if your DM doesn't give you magic items. I don't know. This is based on this feature alone. I would talk to your DM before you decided to play a Thief Rogue and see if magic items are even going to be a thing in their game. Are they going to be that common? If they are going to be common and given out frequently, and you can work with your DM and say, "Hey, could you give me something like give me kind of like scaling items? Give me something that's like decent at level 3, and then maybe when it gets to level 5, you can give me something a little bit better. When you get to level 9, you can give me something a little bit better. If you work with them on like a scaling there, maybe you could start with like a wand of magic missiles and then get a wand of, fear or something, and then get a wand of fireballs, kind of scale up a little bit like that. I
Yeah,
think your DM can easily work with you on something like that, but you need to work with your DM.
I don't know. That's the sort of thing I'll just jump into this subclass and roll the dice with the DM.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's
You do you. I can't
I
stop you.
I don't know. There's something about I don't like this planning out. I like the magic items to come organically, you know.
Well, you
I
don't
don't want to
necessarily
be
have to plan it
given
out. You
them.
could just tell your DM that you're taking this subclass and
Yeah, I
ask
can
him
do
to be
that much.
mindful of it.
Yeah.
That's all you really got to do. Their second story work feature that they also get at level 3. Now they've just kind of simplified the climbing speed. It used to give you a flat climbing speed of 30 feet. Now it just gives you a climbing speed equal to your walking speed. So if you have
That's
boosts
neat.
to your walking speed, it now boosts your climbing speed as well.
Nice.
Um, Additionally, the wording for using dexterity to determine your jump distances has been clarified, which thank goodness. I can't even remember the jump rules anymore.
I
So
was
they make it
just
a bit.
about to ask that. Do you have they changed the jump rules?
I don't think so because I haven't heard anything about it.
Ugh, the jump
Yeah,
rules were not good.
yeah. So um, their ninth level feature, Supreme Sneak, now provides a. This is the subclass that provides a new option for Cutting Strike. So this is a new option. This is called Stealth Attack. It costs 1d6 of your sneak attack damage. And you can only use it while hidden and invisible. And again, being hidden gives you the invisible condition, so
All
don't
right.
be confused by that. So this attack does not end the hidden condition on you as long as you end your turn behind 3/4 or total cover. So normally when you attack while you're hidden, that breaks your
Right.
stealth. So if you use this, you're sacrificing 1d6 of damage, but you're still hidden.
That feels like an assassin thing.
It kind of does, doesn't it?
But I mean, I could see it working with Thief as well, but I like it.
I do like it too. Um, honestly, I don't know exactly how. It remains to be seen if this is actually worth the d6 to use it. Rogues can already re-hide as a bonus action, so I don't know exactly how worth it this is, and also
Depends on how
maybe
many magic items you have.
yeah, that's true actually. Yeah, I didn't think about that. If you got a bunch of magic items you want to use, then maybe you've. Although I think so. Okay, one slight problem with that.
That's going to break your
If
stealth. Yeah.
yeah, casting spells that require a verbal component also breaks stealth.
Yeah.
So if your magic item is having you cast a spell that doesn't require a verbal component, you're fine. But I'm pretty sure Fireball and Magic Missile and most of
Well,
those have a verbal component.
anytime a fireball launches out of a bunch of bushes, that your position's
Yeah,
been given
it's
away.
pretty obvious. So, like I said, I don't know exactly how useful this is. If getting your sneak attack is super easy in this new revision of the rules, maybe you don't need this at all, and maybe this is kind of a dead feature. I don't know. My inclination is to think that you'll use it some rounds occasionally, but I don't think you'll use it frequently.
Hmm. I I would make it a priority to have something that's not going to give myself away to do as a bonus action. I don't know what, but that's I want to be I want to use this.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would also try and find things like that. It's an interesting thing to try and build towards. I'm not exactly
Yeah.
sure how you do it yet, but it does pique my interest. Level 13, their use magic device feature has been upgraded. You may now attune to 4 magic items rather than the usual 3 that most characters can do. Potentially, that's extremely powerful. Again,
Sure.
depends on what magic items you get. Additionally, certain magic items, like a wand of fireballs, has charges, and you expend those charges when you cast the spells. When you expend a charge from a magic item, you roll a d6, and on a 6, you get refunded 1 charge.
Ooh,
So, if you cast a fireball from a wand of fireballs, it costs 1 charge. If you roll a 6, you rebuy that charge.
I like it.
Um, go ahead.
I said I like it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. I don't know how often you're actually going to run through all the charges of a magic item each day, and they do recover on a long rest.
Not all of
So
them.
not all of them. You're right. It's based on a dice roll, so you may get less than you would have liked to. So I
I
do
mean,
think this is good.
some items just have finite charges that don't ever recover, right?
That's true, actually. Yeah, I didn't think about that. So, 1 in 6 chance to get a free extra use. So that
Yeah.
might come up. There is one last bit of this. You can use spell scrolls of any spell, and intelligence is your spell casting ability for that spell. Now, we talked about spell scrolls before. If you want to use a spell scroll, it has to be a spell of your class. So if you're a wizard, you can't cast Cure Wounds with a spell
Right.
scroll. This ignores that though. You're a rogue, you don't have any spell schools, but you can cast anything. Now, to do so, for all scrolls of spells above level 1, so cantrips and level 1 spells, you're fine. But for 2 and above, you must succeed on an Arcana check equal to 10 plus the spell's level. and if you fail, the scroll disintegrates. So you just take expertise in Arcana at some point.
Yeah.
You get to pick more expertises at level 6, I believe. So just grab Arcana right there, and you'll be good to go. And you'll probably never fail this check, even when you're casting a 9th level scroll.
Yeah.
And their capstone feature, Thief's Reflexes, which gives them an extra turn on turn 1, is unchanged and still one of the best capstone features in the game.
Awesome.
So I am sad to see my old Thief Rogue build die. That being said, this is cool too. It's heavily dependent on what magic items you get.
Yes.
So it's hard to give it a ranking. I would say it's better than the old Thief Rogue on average. You don't have to do crazy things like I did to make it actually work. Just get good magic items. And I feel like that's a much less tall order than what I was asking with that build.
Sure.
So I like it. I would definitely talk to my DM before I played it, though. But potentially, it's extremely powerful,
I wouldn't.
and nobody can stop
To
me.
my own peril. I know.
So, yeah, I would potentially the Thief Rogue is the strongest subclass, and I don't
Oh,
know what you're
well,
gonna get.
yeah, that depending
So,
on the
on
magic items.
average, I'd
I
say the
still think
Arcane Trickster
Arcane
came out.
Trickster's up there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say Arcane Trickster came out the best of this. It started best, and it's still the best. I think the Soul Knife really just got a couple of quality of life improvements, so it's still probably second best. Thief Rogue out of this book is definitely third best because the Assassin is kind of sad, to be honest with you. I really would have liked them to try a bit more with that one.
Yeah, me too. I think the Assassin is an archetype a lot of people want to play,
It's
and it just
iconic.
wasn't given the juice it needed in the 2014 books, and it's still not there yet.
No, I'm afraid not, and that's a real shame to see because we should have a good assassin style build that's easily followed through this game. And Assassin Rogue just kind of doesn't really provide it. I mean, at least my thing is with the Assassin Rogue, it excelled at killing people outside of combat, right?
Hmm.
If you had a priority target, like a noble or something that you wanted to kill, yeah, a big burst of 50 damage would do it.
Of course, I mean,
Like
5 damage might do it.
it might, but maybe you're have a bit higher, stronger of a target.
Yeah.
Assassinate, sneaking up on him, could legitimately one shot a real threat.
This is
That was a niche
I mean
that it
that's what
had that it doesn't have
that's
anymore.
well that's what it was supposed to do, I think. But I think a lot of people just don't play that kind of game.
I don't think so either, but I'm saying it's a niche that it had
Yeah.
that it doesn't even have that anymore.
Yeah, I guess not.
It's
I mean, yeah.
it, anyway. Uh, Qualms with the assassin out of the way. What are your thoughts on this new rogue overall?
I like it. I mean, like I said in the beginning, I like the what were they called? Your
Cunning
sneak attack
strikes.
options. Yeah, the cunning strikes and the sneaky strikes, or
Yeah,
no, devious strikes. That's what it was. Um, those are fun options. I'd be very interested to play around with those in combination with the subclasses. See, and then even the other additional couple of the like the assassin and the thief got.
yeah. I will say, I have never been super interested in playing a rogue. I always kind of thought that they would be a little bit boring because, just sneak attacking every round. Um, Even in Baldur's Gate 3, I didn't really, I multi-classed Asterion out of rogue instantly. But this rogue, I, I'd play it. I'd actually be kind of interested in it.
I make my
So
own fun, Cameron.
we know, we all know your your ability to come up with corner cases for every spell proves that point all on its own.
All right. Well, that was our rundown on the new Rogue and a brief overview of the new changes in the subclasses. So thank you, Cameron, and thank you everybody for being here. We'll do another one of these soon. I guess we're gonna have to do Monk next.
I
People
think we
want to know about
gotta,
the new
right?
Monk. Yeah,
I think we
I
have
want
to.
to know about the new Monk.
I want to deep dive on
I'm
it myself.
I'm gonna miss Monk sucking so much. But
Not anymore.
yeah, I already had this tragedy with bards. Like,
Yeah, they're great now. What are you gonna do? Who are you gonna mock now? You can't mock the rogue. Get your favorite class. Anyway.
all right. Well, let us know your thoughts down in the comments section below. And like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.